Our Week 10 cash and GPP lineup, which scored 105 and 117 points respectively, were a disappointment. We look to turn things around for Week 11 with a full cash and GPP lineup on DraftKings, all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee with the Fantasy Football Consultants. Michael Kurtzman is out this week, and this, I have to admit, everybody, is one of my favorite times of the year where Michael and I get to compete against all the people who qualified for our tournament, and I want to let you know how it went. The first week, Michael, not bad in his first time as a host for competing. Out of 24 competitors, he finished 9th with 124 DraftKings points with his lineup. Ironically, both he and I did a lot better with our personalized lineup than what we put on our video. I finished 3rd with 138 points. Kudos go out to Wesley Winston, who scored 139 points, just edging me out for 2nd place. But we have an announcement to make to Jack Young.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. You blew everybody away with 155 points. You are the winner for Week 10, and you take home $50. If you're on the sidelines going, what is all this? How do I get involved? Well, for DraftKings, it is closed so far for this year, but you can still go onto our FanDuel video. I'll put the link when it's available up above, and you can try to qualify for our FanDuel contest. So without any further ado, let's get in and prepare our cash lineup for Week 11. Okay, everybody, let's get going with a cash game lineup, and I want to start with running backs. Now, often we pay up at running backs, especially if I tell you that I've got a pair of backs who are going to be the featured back on their team. They will get goal line carries, and they'll be involved in a passing game against a defense I think they'll be able to completely expose. How much am I going to have to pay? $18,000? $17,000? For the low price of $12,000. That's an average of $6,000 salary. I've got 2 great running backs for you. The first one at only $6,400 is DeAndre Swift. And at $5,600, it's Kalen Ballage. Let's take it one step at a time. Let's talk about Swift. Well, one thing is the Detroit Lions passing game is currently on Wednesday in shambles. What am I talking about? Well, their quarterback, Matthew Stafford, is questionable with an injury. Their wide receivers, Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones Jr., and Danny Amendola are all questionable. Their tight end, Hawkinson, is questionable. Now, that's 5 key guys in their passing game. Let's just say 2 of the 5 don't play. They're going to have to rely far more on the running game, and that running game is all in the hands of DeAndre Swift. He's taken over, folks. Look last week, 21 touches. We love that, and we love his matchup. What we want to do, we've talked about it for a long time. We love to play running backs against the Carolina defense. As if you needed a reminder, they're 30th. So there we go. How about Kalen Ballage? What about him? All he is doing is he's a home favorite running back, 8.5-point favorite against probably the worst team in the NFL, the New York Jets. So game script wise, I really do expect the LA Chargers to be ahead, and then to rely on Ballage. A little revenge game as a former Jet player. But more important than that, he's taken over as the running back. And Austin Eckler looks like he is still another week away. The earliest to return is week 12. So this is his backfield here in week 11. And last week, all he had was 23 touches, 18 carries, getting involved in the passing game at an absurdly low salary of 5,600, given the game script and given his role. All right, now that I got that base at running back, where am I going to go at wide receiver? Well, where I'm going to go is a bunch of guys who I expect to get a ton of targets this week. And it's a guy I probably have picked in my cash lineup more than anyone else this year. And it's Diontae Johnson. And the reason why I keep going back to Diontae Johnson is, here's the big caveat, as long as he stays healthy, he continues to produce double-digit targets. I think in every game but one in which he didn't get injured at the very beginning of the game. So we love that. And like his matchup, he plays the Jacksonville Jaguars, who don't have a good defense at all, and certainly don't have a good passing defense. They've given up an average of more than 30 points a game. And look at this. Say what you want about the three-headed monster that the Steelers have at wide receiver between Juju Smith-Schuster, Claypool, and Diontae Johnson. I don't know why there's an insistence of DraftKings to list Diontae Johnson as the cheapest, but you know what? Fine. I will simply take the savings and get Diontae Johnson in my lineup. I'm hunting for targets, folks. Continue to hunt for targets. And I'm going to save money while I do it at only $5,400. Do you remember a guy named Amari Cooper? Apparently DraftKings doesn't, because they are listing him at only $5,400. Look, he's the number one wide receiver on the Dallas Cowboys in a dream matchup here against Minnesota. I expect a ton of points to be scored in this game because Dallas's defense is awful and Minnesota's defense, especially their pass defense, is awful. And here's the deal. Andy Dalton is back. Is Andy Dalton as good as Dak Prescott? Of course not. But he does have a rapport with Amari Cooper that I believe the third and fourth string quarterbacks didn't have. So I feel really good at this pick, especially given at 5,400. So let's dial up Amari Cooper. All right, where do we go from here? The last guy that's going to complete our triplet of wide receivers in our hunt for targets is a guy who's been getting consistent targets at only 5,200. It's Brandin Cooks. All right. Now, it's amazing he got 8 targets last week because he played in a windstorm against Cleveland. But you see that the guy has just gotten consistent targets, 9, 9, 9, 12 in the last 5 games. And he faces a New England defense that we're unclear whether Stephon Gilmore is going to play. And even if he does play, it's very likely he will be on Will Fuller. I think this Houston team's offense will get back on playing at home in Houston. I looked at the weather. The weather is not bad like it was in Cleveland. So Brandin Cooks in our lineup. All right. So from here, we move to tight end, and it's kind of an interesting slate for tight ends here on the main slate. All the premier tight ends, not on the slate. The most expensive tight end is Mark Andrews, sub 5,000. So, in taking a look at this, one of my favorite tight ends this week, doesn't matter the price, is Hayden Hurst. And I'm surprised it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down after Noah Fant. All right, so Hayden Hurst is my guy. I really like the matchup in the Dome. I got 2 Dome teams in New Orleans. I think a lot of points are going to be scored here. Traditionally, how do you attack New Orleans? Not on the ground, but in the air. And to the extent you can avoid Marshawn Lattimore, then that's great. Well, this is a recipe for success for Hayden Hurst. Add the fact that that Calvin Ripley, I'm not sure if he's going to be 100%. I'm not sure if he's going to play. I know Hurst is not 100%. So for now, we're getting him in our lineup. All right, before we go to flex, now that I get a little bit of lay of the land, I've actually been somewhat economical in how much I have spent. So I am going to go back to quarterback. So when I look at cash games, I really am starting to come to a realization here in 2020. I want a quarterback that gives me some decent floor by running the ball. So when I look and say, you know what, I am going to save a little money, and I look down and go, what mid-priced quarterback would I be interested in? I really did think about Philip Rivers before I recovered from the concussion I must have gotten. Said, no, he doesn't run the ball at all. I just don't trust Philip Rivers. Who do I trust? Well, at only $6,200, but what? Get him off the screen. That's not the guy I wanted. $6,200. I can't believe they're the same price. I'd much rather have Cam Newton than Kirk Gibson. He's a player. Kirk Cousins. He's a baseball player. Kirk Cousins. It's Cam Newton. Oh, yes, it may very well be a trap, Admiral Akbar. Here's the question you have to ask anytime you play Cam Newton. How much do we think New England will ask him to do? We don't want a situation where we feel like, look, all they're going to do is run the ball. And I understand that concern, given that Houston doesn't do a particularly good job of stopping the run. However, I think Houston is going to score some points in this game. And it's going to force Cam Newton to throw the ball. And by the way, guess who I think is going to do a lion's share of the running? Just look at the last 3 weeks. Average of 10 carries on the ground. I think he's going to benefit from that porous Houston rush defense. Again, when they get around the goal line, they're continuing to look at him. Just look at the last 3 weeks. 4 TDs. He's giving Kyler Murray a run for his money, literally. All right, so we're going with Cam Newton at only $6,200. And yes, I planned it. I planned it this way. I made sure that I save money for the guy that I really wanted on this slate. As soon as the slate came out, I knew this guy was going to be in my cash lineup. Who am I talking about? In the flex at $9,000, this lineup is going to start cooking with Dalvin Cook. I don't need to tell you a lot. I'll just tell you, look, he checks all the boxes, folks. Big time. A home, big time favorite. Number one thing we want is touches. 2 of the last 3 weeks, he's had 30 carries, 32 and 34 touches. That's insane. And he faces a defense, 31st ranked rush defense. I think it's going to be Cook, and more Cook in this game. Obviously, he's the goal line back. He will get involved in the passing game. A good question is, how much would they have had the price Dalvin Cook up before I was not interested in him? I'll tell you this. The answer is greater than $9,000. So I'm happy to get him in my lineup. And I am looking. Wait a minute. How did Kirk Cousins get in this lineup? Get Kirk Cousins out of the lineup. What is his phrase? Do you like that? Answer? No. All right, so we're getting Cam Newton in the lineup. All right, so something is amiss here because I don't have enough money, and I planned this out. So what went wrong? Okay, folks, I figured out what went wrong. what went wrong is I can't afford Hayden Hurst. I like him this week, and I'm going to make sure I get him in my GPP lineup. But I need to save some money at tight end. And a guy I like just about as much, playing a Philadelphia defense who's just awful against tight ends, is Austin Hooper. Remember, they gave this guy a truckload of cash to come over here. And before last week's game, keep in mind that that was in a windstorm. Cleveland was just running the ball all the time. That he's been getting a fair number of targets. And with Odell Beckham Jr. out, the options are limited in the Cleveland passing game. So I'm happy to get Austin Hooper in my lineup. That does leave me enough money at $2,400 to grab the Broncos defense. The Broncos are at home, and they're 10-point. They're 10th in the league in sacks. So I'm not in love with this pick, but I'm comfortable with it. We'll see how Tua does against that Denver defense. Now, I would like this pick a lot more if Locke, Denver's QB, is healthy. You might say, well, why does that matter, whether his QB is healthy? Well, I want to make sure game script-wise that Denver stays close and forces Miami and Tua to throw the ball. That's really important. So if Locke is out, I don't trust this defense, and I actually become the Miami defense, which has been really big play over the last few weeks. I only can switch though to the Miami defense if value comes up later. So it's something we're going to track throughout the week. But for now, I will put the Denver Broncos defense. So that is my team. Cam Newton, not Kirk Cousins. Swift, Ballage, Deontay Johnson, Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, Austin Hooper, Dalvin Cook, and the Denver Broncos. The only thing I have to hope for is in this lineup, I don't have too many cooks in the kitchen. Dalvin Cook, Brandon Cooks. Let's go to the GPP lineup. All right, everybody, you can see on the screen my GPP lineup. It always starts with a stack, and I probably went with a contrarian stack, but I think it's a sneaky good one because I think a lot of points are going to be scored in this Dallas-Minnesota game. 48 over and under, which I think actually is too low. I would bet the over on that one. And I am going to expect Dallas to be behind most of this game. So I think Andy Dalton to his number one target, Amari Cooper, and then running it back the other way, a lot of big play, high air yards potential for Justin Jefferson to have a very big day. The other stack that I think that we can potentially take advantage of is the running back defense stack. Look, Cincinnati plays at Washington. Washington is a favorite, although a small favorite. They are a favorite. And I am going to tell the story that Washington wins this game. And if Washington stays ahead for most of the game, then we're going to get a whole lot of Antonio Gibson. Cincinnati has a bad rush defense, and I think that they can pile it on behind Gibson. Meanwhile, if Washington is ahead, their defense should really have a field day with Cincinnati's offense. Cincinnati has given up the most sacks of anyone in the NFL other than Philadelphia this year. And by the way, Washington has sacked fifth most of all teams in the NFL. The other wide receiver that I'm going with Myers from the New England Patriots. He's the number one wide receiver on New England. He's been over the last 3 weeks getting consistent targets, and to the extent, and I do think that Cam Newton, as I mentioned before, is going to be forced to pass some in this game because I think Houston's going to put some points on the board, and I think it's going to come through Myers. I already talked about Hayden Hurst. I couldn't get him in my cash lineup, but he's in my GPP lineup, and I also talked about DeAndre Swift. I can't forget Davante Adams at $8,600. Folks, the Green Bay Packers are doing everything possible to get the ball in the hands of Davante Adams. He could have had a much bigger game last week than he actually did. This time, he'll be in a dome in a super high scoring game. I think he could really break out for another 2 or 3 touchdown game in this one. So that is my GPP lineup. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Next week, we have a few surprises for you. We're hoping to get a couple of special guests in our daily fantasy football shows next week. So we hope you tune in Thanksgiving week. Until then, take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.